my current side projects is looking at different modes of potential reforms to the United States Senate. And as much fun as I'm having with this, and I am having a lot of fun because I'm a giant nerd and I love my spreadsheets, projects like this just feel a little bit futile for a number of reasons. One of those is that, frankly, nobody's listening. I'm not gonna post this anywhere. I'm not gonna post this on Reddit or wherever. And even if I may talk about it here, that's I don't know, 5 people tops that are gonna hear about this thing. So it's not like it's gonna be this point of national debate because I made a spreadsheet or anything. And also in my ideal world, the Senate wouldn't exist, not as it currently is, with both 6-year terms and statewide elections for senators. Ideally, there would be a unicameral legislature that does everything, not like a parliament, not like a parliament in that there's a prime minister, but a parliament in that it is one house that does everything. So you just give all of the Senate's responsibility to the House or something. That one's not my favorite. You could do a bicameral with basically 2 of our current houses, with proportional representation, with one of those having longer terms or a larger number of members or whatever. Or maybe just a unicameral legislature with longer terms. So 4 years instead of 2 or 6 years instead of 2. But it's still just one, it's just the House, but with longer terms. And maybe I'll go into more depth in a later future video. But I don't know. That also requires screen recording software or something like that I don't, complicated. So beyond the personal gripes that I would have with even this reform, even if it was seriously considered on the national stage, it would not happen today. No fucking way. Republicans would hate it because it would mean less safe seats for them. And Democrats wouldn't have the stomach to change one of their beloved institutions, even if it would benefit them. I mean, we haven't changed the federal minimum wage in more than 15 years, which is really cool. I love that. This kind of reform, and again, I'm speaking broadly here because I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty details of every single little thing that I've changed or every possibility of what could change, because that would be a whole video on itself. This kind of reform would be the largest change to the Senate since either we started directly electing our senators in the early 1900s regardless, or when we moved from the Articles of Confederation to the Constitution that we have today. So that on its own would require a huge amount of political will. And you would also run into similar problems as before when we first settled on the compromise of having the House and the Senate, in that small states would be like, hey, we want representation, buddy. We're not just gonna give that up for democracy. No, we want power, buddy. So you would need FDR levels of majorities and FDR levels of vote whipping to get this kind of thing passed if you went about it through Congress. Different question entirely if you went through the states, but then same problem, small states being like, hey, why would we vote for this if we're just giving up a Senate seat? With that, it's just not happening. And again, you would need a Democratic Party that actually cared to do these things. I mean, I just think about the Obama administration and how they had supermajorities in both chambers, and the most they got was the Republican healthcare plan, which is really, really cool, really fun. And even if this kind of thing was within the realm of possibility, the long-term utility of this kind of thing is questionable. Because, I'm of the belief that reform will only get you so far. We're not going to get into the depths of what my ideology is, but I will say that electoralism and reform are fine, but they are not as far as I would like to see things go. We'll leave it at that. And so with a reform like this, you'd have to ask, why spend effort here versus elsewhere? You know, any significant change to the federal government, if you want to have a really deep and lasting effect, you would start elsewhere. Number one, in my mind at least, is campaign finance reform. You know, getting rid of corporate money in our elections. Honestly, publicly funding them and just getting rid of the idea that corporations have this divine right to spend as much money as they want on politicians. Like that should be a big no-no. And even just getting that is way less effort, but way more impactful. And then you would also want to look at restrictions on executive power, like looking at how the war powers have been abused by the executive in the last several decades. You know, the whole unitary executive going after the bureaucracy and that kind of thing. And also, for the Supreme Court, you would be looking at like adding terms or expanding the court or both. And like those are all things that are immediately much more impactful and in some cases easier to do. But changing the size or makeup of the Senate is just less important than these other things that also just need to happen. And aside from that, there are also, you know, other things that would need to be done that aren't just like meta-structural things of the government, like universal health care or huge investments in infrastructure, like a New Deal, but green. You know, other things about labor law, like making it easier to unionize, getting rid of like right to work in a bunch of states, that kind of thing. And just like other welfare programs like childcare and food stamps and all these other things that are like, they need immediate attention that fixing the Senate, or not fixing the Senate, but reforming the Senate just does not immediately help with. And so even if it would have some kind of long-term benefit, and undoubtedly it would, because you would be giving the people a more evenly distributed voice. You gotta weigh the pros and the cons of putting this ahead of something else, you know? And you'd almost need some kind of huge, universally galvanizing thing to happen with the US Senate that makes people angry enough about the Senate and its bad representation to get people on board with changing so fundamentally what the Senate does. And then at that point, why stop at what I'm doing and why not go further, right? So it's a little bit futile. But at the end of the day, there's no harm in having a little bit of fun. And I am having a little bit of fun. And honestly, learning more about the United States government is always a good thing. Not necessarily a fun thing, but it is good to know about the government that passes laws about you. And like, not everything you make has to be of like world-changing significance. It's okay to just mess around sometimes. But if there's any senators watching this, email me. We'll be in touch. In other news, I have been sick and it sucks bad. But I'm better now and it's good. It feels good to be back in things. Not like that. Especially when there's like important life things that you need to do that have been hanging over your head for a while. And yeah, but like things are moving now, which is good. I also got ghosted by one of my potential interviews, which I love this economy. It's so good. It's so fun. I love it. Anyway, I somehow finished recording this in the amount of time I had allotted for myself, which is very cool. That'll be that for now, though. Goodbye forever.